World is One Global Leadership Series, partnered by
the spirited new Varna.
Live the Thrill. SBI Mutual Fund, a partner for life.
Hello and welcome to the WION Global Leadership Series, a show where we bring you interviews with heads of state from around the world. And today I have a very special guest whose political career, I can tell you, has spanned more than 70 years. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, former Prime Minister of Malaysia, joining us from Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, welcome to WION.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we'll begin with what has made news in Malaysia and all over the world from Malaysia. Former Prime Minister Najib Razak was found guilty in a historic decision recently. What does this conviction mean for Malaysia and its politics? And is it the end of the road for him, according to you?
I think when he was the Prime Minister, he thought he was above the law. And he believed that he could remain as Prime Minister for as long as he liked, because he believes in bribery. That if you give money to people, then people will support you. He says cash is king. Now that kind of idea is to promote bribery, corruption in the country is very bad, which is the reason why people turn against him. And then of course, the fact that he was leading a party that has been in power since independence, 60 years, he was defeated in the 14th general election. And the defeat was because the people were really very much against him. They came back from all over the world to vote, just to vote and then go back. And that is the measure of their anger towards him. Now they feel satisfied that there is a law that operates in Malaysia that recognizes no particular privileged people. So we feel that this is something that Malaysia can be proud of, because we have managed to have people of high standing being tried in a court of law over a long period of time. He was given every chance to defend himself, but in the end, of course, he was found guilty on all the 7 charges that were placed against him. So that is for us very important. We now feel safe. We don't think that there will be people who can commit some crime and get away with it.
Do you also see a chance for yourself? There's talk of you floating a new party, sir, and your country heading for snap polls.
Politics here is a little bit confusing. For example, my party is in the government, but I am not in the government. We have 2 factions now. One is in the government, one is outside. But we are not happy with our party being in the government now, because it is working together with the party, Najib's party, and Najib's party is known for corruption and all kinds of wrongdoings. So we cannot join our own party, but we hope that we can replace that party, if possible, to bring back the old government.
So you are looking at another term?
Well, we are working towards it to bring back the party which won the election in the 14th general election.
If you take office again, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, would your approach towards India be different?
Our relation with India has always been very good. As you know, we have a lot of people of Indian origin in Malaysia, and they still have connections in India. They are citizens of this country, but of course we cannot forget the fact that they are from India. And because of their presence, we know Indians very well. We know India quite well. And from the very beginning, we have tried to have good relations with India. But of course, off and on, there would be some minor cliches, events which affect the immediate relation at that time. But very quickly, we overcome such a strain in our relation.
The people of India and Malaysia is one thing. I'm talking about your relationship as a leader and as a former Prime Minister. Would you say that under your leadership, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, the India-Malaysia relationship deteriorated?
Well, it did because of my remarks on Kashmir. But other than that, relation was fairly good, even under my leadership.
How would you describe your equation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India?
Well, he was one of the, in fact, he was one of the earliest Prime Minister to call on me when I became Prime Minister the second time. Apparently, we had met a long time ago, although I had forgotten, and he was able to show a picture of us together a long time ago before he became Prime Minister.
It sounds like a warm gesture to me. The Indian Prime Minister visited you, as you said, soon after you took office. He put his best foot forward. And it is said that you repaid this gesture with hostility.
Well, we always want to maintain good relations. Whoever may be the Prime Minister of India is not something that we should take into consideration. Whoever is the Prime Minister will develop good relations with the Prime Minister.
And whoever is the Prime Minister, I assume, will not appreciate the kind of comments that came from Malaysia under you on Kashmir. I'm sure you did realize what kind of reaction it would get, and still you said what you did. Why is that?
No, I have been making comments about affairs all over the world where I think something wrong is done. This is not about supporting Pakistan. It is about the people of Kashmir.
Sir, I did not even mention Pakistan, but I will come to Pakistan in a bit. There's a fugitive called Zakir Naik who lives in your country. Why doesn't the Malaysian government send him back to India? In 2017, you had said that Prime Minister Modi met you in Russia, but did not ask for the extradition of Zakir Naik. India had contested that claim, and since then, India has sought the extradition of Zakir Naik. Why is he not being sent back?
Yeah, the situation in India with regard to Muslim-Hindu relationship is not so good. He is, I think, not very welcome in India. So we thought that for the time being, he can stay here, but we would like to send him to some other country where he would be safe. Unfortunately, not many countries are willing to accept him.
Of course, he's not welcome, and of course, he's not being welcomed by most countries because he has terror charges against him. You've made some very sweeping statements. This is a man who's on the run. The government of India has asked for his extradition, and you're saying he's not welcome in India.
The government is one thing. The people have got different ideas. Sometimes the people act rather roughly.
Let me ask you this question one more time. If you were to be the Prime Minister of Malaysia again, would you or would you not extradite Zakir Naik?
Well, we would like to send him to some country where we feel he would be safe. That takes some doing.
But not to India?
Well, not to India, because at this moment we feel that he would not be safe.
Since you mentioned Pakistan, I'll come to Pakistan. It is said that you backed Pakistan, sir, against India, only to position yourself as a leader of the Islamic world. Is that right?
It's not about being Islamic or the stand made by the Islamic world. When I find something that is wrong done by anybody, even the big powers, I have always felt free to voice my opinion. That's all.
Have you voiced your opinion on the minorities in Pakistan?
we felt that they need to look after, because in Malaysia, as you know, we have a lot of minorities, but we treat them well, and they are citizens of this country. But sometimes in other countries, the government may have one policy, but the people sometimes do not follow government policy. They express their views sometimes in violent ways.
Imran Khan gave your Islamic summit a miss under Saudi Arabian pressure. Was that disappointing for you?
Of course, it is very disappointing.
Did you have a conversation with him since then, and what did you tell him, if I may ask?
Well, he did come here after the meeting that he was invited to. He came and we had a chat about the future of Muslims in this world.
What is the status of the parallel Islamic group that you created, and what is its purpose?
It's not a parallel Islamic group. These are members of the Conference of Islamic Countries. But we find that if we have the whole group, it's difficult to reach any agreement. So we thought that if we can have 2 or 3 countries with who are like-minded to discuss the problem faced by the Muslims in the world, I think that will be more effective. At a later stage, perhaps other members might join.
But some of these like-minded countries are not doing very much for the Muslims of China.
Yes, and but China is a very powerful country. We don't go to war with China. We try to find other ways of solving our strained relations with China.
So on the one hand, you raise concerns about the Muslims in India, which has the second highest Muslim population in the world, and you make sweeping statements. But on the other, you say that you will not stand up for the Muslims of China because China is a powerful country. Have I got this right?
Well, our relation with India and with China are not quite the same. So with India, we feel that you are more liberal, more willing to accept criticisms. But with China, you know, they have a different system and different viewpoints.
But are you going to follow the Chinese system, or are you going to stand up for the Muslims of China? As you say, you're trying to do something for the Muslim world.
Well, there are ways of doing things. It's not always through confrontation or even through open statements. We will do things in our way.
Have you done something so far, sir?
We try to talk to the Chinese.
And what is the response?
Well, so far it's not so good. But I think the Chinese are becoming more and more conscious of the need for them to be a little bit more liberal towards Muslims in China.
I don't know how you make that assessment, but I will not get into that. How do you see China's role in this pandemic, and do you support an international investigation against Beijing?
Yeah, I don't take it as a kind of finger pointing. What we need to do is to try and resolve this as a problem for the whole world. Pointing fingers at China doesn't help at all. In fact, China has shown how they can handle this pandemic much better than the United States, for example. This is not a case of having facilities alone. It is a question of discipline. It's people who believe that they should be free to do what they like will find difficulties in accepting rules and regulations and SOPs in order to handle this pandemic.
Does this episode expose the failure of global multilateral institutions like the WHO, like the United Nations, that have not been able to hold countries like China, powers like China, accountable for the export of the virus?
But I think China is trying to work with WHO it doesn't have the same stand as the U.S. As you know, the U.S. is getting out of the World Health Organization. That is not China's way. China has offered to work with any country in terms of developing vaccines and medicine for this pandemic. They are very cooperative, even with Malaysia, and I think China's attitude is far better than some other countries which even consider that if they do find a vaccine, it is only for them.
Which are those countries?
Well, the the research is being done in Switzerland, and Switzerland has stated that their priority would be to give to the United States first.
In the past, you also called out China's new colonialism, and that was years back. Now it is evident. How can countries like Malaysia counter China's expansion in the South China Sea?
Well, the Malay states, the small Malay states of Malaysia, has had relation with China for nearly 2,000 years. That they survive at all is a miracle. Because if China had been like the European, we would have been colonized by China by now. But China has maintained relation with us to the point where even though they call themselves the Middle Kingdom, the biggest country in the world, but we survived despite their obvious size and power.
This is a U-turn, sir, from China's new colonialism to China not being as bad as the Europeans.
Well, it is true. China is not as bad as the European. The European came here in 1509. 2 years later, they colonized us. China has known us for longer than that. They have not colonized us. That is a fact, historical fact. But today we have a problem with China making claims in the South China Sea. But we cannot go to war with China. We have to find other solutions to this problem. At the moment, we have some claims, and they have not disturbed us.
Okay. American military presence has increased in the Indo-Pacific to counter the Chinese. What does it mean for the region, and do you fear a military clash, even though you say Malaysia would not want to be involved, but there are other players in the region?
Yeah, we don't think confrontation is going to produce good results. America always thinks in terms of violent solution to problem. If there is anything, in the past they used to send gunboats, now they send aircraft carriers. And I think that is not the way to deal with international conflicts. I think it's better if America and China were to sit down and iron out their differences around the table. That is our wish, that is our way. We are against war, we are against making threats in order to cow other countries into following what you want them to do.
That is the Chinese playbook, making threats and forcing other countries to follow what you want them to do. Nobody wants a war, but when there is a clearly expansionist power trying to rename islands, trying to occupy territory, trying to grab land, would you not stand up to it?
We have stood up to China. For example, during the period of the previous government, they entered into agreements which were one-sided in favor of China. We took a stand that we want the agreements to be changed, and China has not resisted. They have accepted our need to change agreements which were more in favor of China than of Malaysia. To that extent, we are able to deal with China. But of course, we are not up to sending warships into the area to threaten China. That would be very silly because we don't have the capacity. I think we should know what our strength is and what our weakness in order to deal with other countries.
You've said in the past that you'd pick China's money over America's uncertainty. Do you still stand by that statement in the wake of this pandemic?
One cannot deny that China is a big market. 1.4 billion people with very high income now, and they are to us a big market. In fact, China has become our biggest trading partner. We don't fight with our markets. We want to develop good relations with our markets, and we have to balance between other things happening like political action taken by China against the fact that China is our market, our biggest market.
Would you say that China's debt trap, as we call it, is a serious concern for countries in the region and across the world? There are many countries which are unable to repay the Chinese loans that they took, and it is hurting their economies.
China has suddenly become very rich, and their policy is to expand their relation with many countries, including poor countries in Africa. Malaysia is very close to China. Obviously, the Chinese, we have 26% of our population is of Chinese origin, and this enables us to have closer contact with China. And we feel that while we welcome Chinese funds coming here, we have limits to the amount of investments coming from China. But we will not borrow money from China because it will place us in a very difficult position.
What do you make of China's border aggression against India?
I think the two of you should sit down and settle this problem.
Well, the talks are very much on, but since you say that you comment on anything that you see wrong in the world, would you not want to comment on what China is doing at the border with India?
We never take sides. We just recognize problems, and solving the problem by taking sides is not going to do any good. We think that between China and India, there is already some understanding. Already you are going to talk to each other. Please continue talking.
Well, the talks are very much on, but as a leader, one of the senior-most leaders in the world, someone who is not known to pull his punches or mince his words, would you not criticize one country for this unprovoked violation or transgression?
It's not going to solve anything. Even if we criticize, it doesn't change matters. All we are going to do is to appeal to countries which have conflicts with each other to sit down around a table and discuss things. Fighting, killing, and all that is not the way to solve problems.
Well, you've criticized Donald Trump, and that hasn't changed anything. You refused to meet him during your visit to the US. You've renegotiated trade deals with China and slammed Xi Jinping's policy. You've taken on the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. You've upset the Saudi monarchy. You've set up war tribunals to indict British leaders. Who is your friend, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, apart from perhaps Imran Khan?
Well, I think all those people are my friends. The problem with the US is not the United States, it is the president. That will change, we hope, in November, because even the Americans don't like their own president. So as far as India is concerned, I met twice with the Prime Minister. We had good discussions. We raised some matters, we ignored other matters. But that is the way to carry on. I don't think by confrontation, breaking off diplomatic relation would help in any way. We would like to sustain relation, and we would like to discuss things and find solutions to our problem.
Wouldn't you say your policy of non-confrontation is selective?
For certain countries, they appear that we are being selective, but we are not. We are a neutral nation. We have good relations. We want to have good relations with every country in the world, irrespective of their ideologies. Of course, some countries are said to be bad, but we don't try to just make criticism If we can do something, we do.
How much did India's palm oil import ban hurt Malaysia? And would you say that you jeopardize the economic interests of your country to further your own political interests?
We would want to see all problems, conflicts between nations resolved in a peaceful manner. That is our creed. That is our belief. We are against violence, and we are in no position to use violence against anybody. We are a weak nation, and we accept that.
Would you say that India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has emerged as an assertive global player?
Yes, but India, we look at Modi's his policies. Foreign policies, I think, is okay, but it is a domestic policy which differs from previous Indian governments. You know, you are a secular state, and I think it is important that you perpetuate that that stand that you have made at the point when you became independent.
Well, India is still a secular country, and I was talking about India's role on the world stage under this Prime Minister. It's interesting that you want to keep taking the focus back to domestic issues, which I'd be happy to discuss. But for the moment, I want you to answer. Has India emerged as an assertive global player under the current Prime Minister?
Well, in many ways, he has done quite well internationally. But then, of course, we need to understand India better under Modi, because he is different from other Indian prime ministers. We have good contacts with previous prime ministers, and we feel that we feel very comfortable before, but now we find that sometimes there have been accusations that the laws discriminate against Muslims, for example.
Well, you're harboring a terror accused and you're blaming another country. I don't know what to say to that. I'm sure you get this question a lot, sir. You made a dramatic comeback, then you announced a sudden resignation. You're 95 years old. Have you considered retirement?
Yes, I will retire. In fact, I had retired when they asked me to come back. It is not my own wish. After I retired, people come to see me, asking me, please do something, because the government that was in place was not doing the right thing. So I tried to advise, so I had to become active again, because this is the demand by some people, a majority of them, because as you know, they support my coalition to the point of winning for the first time against the government of Malaysia, which has been there for 60 over years. And I think they feel I can play a role. And I think it'd be selfish of me to say, well, I'm old, I can't do, I can't, please let me be free and things like that. That's not my way. If I am required to do something for the country, my health doesn't matter at all.
That's very inspiring. At a time when health has become the biggest issue the world cares about, do you want to give us some tips for remaining healthy? At 95, you're raring to go.
I don't know what I can tell people about. I'm an ordinary person who happened to become a leader and happens to live a bit longer than others. But as long as I can do something for my country, I will, because that is what I dedicate my life to, because I think one should not be selfish. When one can do something for one's country, one should not consider one's personal likes and dislikes.
And you've seen so much in the world, so much change, and you've seen some really big events, but this pandemic is being described as a once-in-a-century situation. How will this change the world according to you and the world order?
I think we are breaking up. You know, when the West decided on a globalized world, on removing borders and free this more borderless world, for example, they thought that this will mean they will have the whole world as a capital. But now they are finding that the Eastern countries are making use of that borderless world for themselves and doing much better than the West. And now they have second thoughts about a globalized world. Now they feel they should look after their own territories and states and all that, and be more nationalistic rather than internationalistic. So this is what is troubling the world. The West have yet to admit that their time is over, that they must accept that other regions too can do as well as they did in the past, but without the wrong things that they did, of course. So in the future, we are going to see Asian countries dominate the world, not because they want to colonize the world, but because the world should be borderless, should allow for free trade, and therefore bring prosperity even to the poorest country.
Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, I'm going to thank you for your time, sir, and I hope you're successful in your next political mission. And I hope when we talk next, you'll have a more unbiased view of India and India's leadership and India's society. It's not so bad.
Well, thank you very much. You asked very interesting questions, and of course, it's quite difficult to answer without hurting other people's feelings and all that. But still, I appreciate the questions that you asked, because it gave me a chance for me to clarify certain of my stand, my beliefs, and what I have been doing. Thank you.
World is One Global Leadership Series, partnered by
The spirited new Varna.
Live the Thrill. SBI Mutual Fund, a partner for life.